let's just get into it. The last 6 months have been the craziest of my life. Like, it's actually impossible to describe quite how crazy, and so I decided, you know what, I'm going to record this video to document it. It might never ever be shared outside of me, but at least future me then will have this thing to look back on and be like, wow, Chloe, that was a lot. It was also hugely transformative. It's been probably most profoundly life-changing 6 months. That's a big claim. I'm going to explain in a minute just why, to give you a picture of it. I'm actually going to use these wonderful post-it notes that a very good friend of mine brought back from Japan to map out what's been going on over the last, well, since December. Will it be too vulnerable? Vulnerable. Possibly. Will somebody watching this think that I have shared too much about my life, been too open? Probably. Will I feel really uncomfortable as soon as I've shared it with anyone that I shared it with? Yeah, 100%. Does that though mean that I'm not going to lean into the discomfort of sharing it, and that future me gets to decide how and who and when and all of those good things? No. And do I get to decide that maybe it was too much and future me gets to regret? Yeah, that's possible. Do I think she will? No, I don't. Because the reality is I am both an incredibly private person, but also someone who values transparency enormously in other people, like the kind of content, the kind of people that inspire me. And those people and that content are themselves. They also share behind the scenes. So an example of that is a guy called Jonathan Courtney, who started a podcast called The Unscheduled CEO, which is such a brilliant podcast. If you watch it, you might be a bit like, what the hell? Who is this guy? He starts like rating sparkling water. He does sparkling water reviews in his podcast. He also, though, reveals unbelievable transparency in terms of the really successful business he's built, the struggles that he's gone on, the internal dialogue, the belief systems that he holds, the things that haven't worked, the things that have worked. And he does it live, fully and transparently as himself. And he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit what anyone thinks. And every time, it's probably the only podcast that I listen to every single week. And I genuinely will not miss an episode. And I genuinely look forward to. I mention that because the reason why that resonates with me so much is because he's so himself. He's so unapologetically sharing. It's completely unscripted. It's completely unplanned. It's also completely unedited, which is taking it to a whole nother level for me in terms of like discomfort. But he will literally just live on the thing, share the whole thing, press send, and there is something so freeing in an AI world, or, you know, just in a world where we're all trying to be so perfect or look a certain way or be perceived a certain way. There is something so incredibly refreshing about that. So I love that. The other podcast I love is Behind the Diary, which is edited by an incredible guy called Will, but it is a Stephen Bartlett kind of behind the scenes. Now, they used to do kind of weekly episodes, and that backlog, they're so good. And it's just, as a business owner, as someone who is doing the right thing, I do own my own business, and I have successfully done that for the last 5 years. It is just wonderful and wonderfully refreshing to see other people's learnings, belief systems, what's going on in their world, how they're approaching things, and I find it really, really inspiring. And I hold back on behind the scenes stuff because I'm like, who really cares? Like, no one actually cares about me or what I'm going through. Everyone just cares about themselves and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but like, people only will pay attention to things that they think are going to benefit them, and it feels so self-indulgent. This episode feels so self-indulgent. Me saying this is the craziest year I've had and I'm about to explain it all to you feels crazy indulgent, because who cares? Like, who cares? And I realised that belief was super damaging, because I care about hearing their behind the scenes. And as an example, watching Jonathan go through his ups and downs and internal monologues and like little, even his tech issues, he will just be sitting there trying to connect or telling us that, there's a clicking noise or something that's going on, that internal monologue. He doesn't edit it out. He just like says, you, the audience, you deal with it. And you know what? I kind of love it. I absolutely love it. Like, I really do. So why do I place different expectations on myself and the kind of connection or content that I put out there? Why does everything have to be so scripted? Okay, so let's start with this. Question number 1. Why am I wearing a wifey jumper and wearing some bikini? Well, it's because within the last 6 months, I got engaged. How exciting. I'm going to use this episode to talk about that, because there's actually a lot of backstory behind it. I will be married, because I'm getting married soon, really soon, in Sydney, Australia. But before we talk about that, I'm excited, we're excited, Otis is excited. Let's start and rewind the clock. Okay, I'm back. Now I am a bit more prepared. I've been through my diary to actually work out how I map it all. And yeah, there's a lot that I want to share. I'm going to fill out the whole of this to tell you the story of what happened since December. So the first thing that happened in December is I flew to New York to facilitate an offsite for a client who, oh my gosh, love him so much, has been such a massive supporter of mine, and I've actually worked with 4 of his teams, definitely 3 directly, a couple of like sub-teams of teams, and he invited me to help him with a team, with a new team. He's moved to New York and said, right, can you fly and help me out? And at the time, I had just come off the run of like a really, really busy November and was really tired, but like it was something I really wanted to do. And if I'm truly honest, it was something that I thought, wow, that'll look amazing. Like, I'll go and I'll get this awesome content. Me, New York, to be invited to speak in New York, to deliver for that team, I thought, yeah, that's a really good opportunity. Why on earth, I'd be totally mad to say no. Now, he'd actually asked me, I think we had 2-3 weeks notice, so I was kind of like booking flights 2 weeks out, and as I say, it was a hugely busy run out. And I got on the plane and hadn't prepped the session beforehand. We'd had a conversation to discuss what it was going to look like. I was really clear on what we wanted to do, the outcomes of the team. And this team was super busy. And so what I had agreed to do is try and squish, and in hindsight, I shouldn't have done this. I should have said no or pushed back and found a different way, but squish what would have been normally 2.5 days into a day. And optimistic Chloe thought, yeah, I can absolutely do that. I'm busy. I'm not going to have time to super plan it in advance, but I fly on the Friday. I'll plan it on the 10-hour flight. I'll do the prep for it on the Friday, so I'm really ready. I'll enjoy a weekend in New York, and I will come in on the Monday, facilitate the session, fly back out that evening, that night from JFK. This whole story is one for probably another day, but long story short, I didn't prep on the plane, I slept. On the Saturday, I thought I'll prep now, and I decided to enjoy New York instead. Wish I left all the planning to the Sunday, should not have done that, and realised halfway through Sunday that what I had committed to do, I could not do it as well as I would have wanted to. Now, I actually ended up facilitating that session the next day. 4.6 out of 5 was the overall rating. So the session was actually good from a participant perspective. However, I was a broken human, full on, so tired. I'd spent, and I shouldn't have done this. So I'm not, and I will not do it again. But honestly, I'd been on it, prepping from the moment I woke up at 7 till 11 p.m. and got up at 4 to finish and finalise the session before running an entire day solo, navigating X, Y, and Z, and barely having time to eat. So that is all my fault. That's all my learnings that have come from that. But to give you context, I basically arrived back from this in the UK burnt out, really full on exhausted. Fortunately, I had a holiday coming up. Where's it gone? Let's put it back. Fortunately, I had a holiday coming up, and so my plan was to just clear everything. Clear everything before that holiday. Literally just anything I could get out of doing. Okay, that's not happening. Isn't that working? Anything I could get out of doing. Oh, this is going to be annoying. Okay, that was not working. I'm going to try Blue Tack instead. Anything that I could cancel, I didn't, and I decided, right, I'm just going to wait until I go on holiday. And well, I'm going to start it earlier. And up to this point in time, my businesses have been running for 5 years. I have never taken more than 2 weeks off, in a row. So I've given myself a month. I was like, wow, that's super indulgent. Amazing. New Year's Eve, I've had, by this time, a whole month, basically. And I yet still feel, for the first time ever in the business, possibly in my life, that I really don't want to go back and do the thing that I was going to do. I didn't want to work. Usually, I come back after a holiday. One, I don't want to go. I don't want to stop working because I absolutely love it. It lights me up. Genuinely, I'm not just saying that. I love it. It's such a creative outlet. So generally, when Tom wants to go on holiday, a lot more than I do, I'm fine, I'll do it for you, which I know is mad and its own whole conversation. But I say that because I want to land just how much I love working, or just because or just how much this came as a real shock, a moment in my life where I was just oh, what's going on here? And I spent New Year's Eve with my mum, who we were on holiday with, just crying. We totally missed New Year's. My dad was out with Tom partying away. Me and my mum were in the hotel room, and I'm just what's wrong with me? I didn't feel like myself. I just felt really completely and utterly lost. Now, I'll probably talk in another episode or future around impact of reflections and periods of time and moments of time where for me are kind of trigger points, and how everyone will have their own. But for me, New Year's Eve, as an example, is a reflection moment. And I was looking at where I was, the business, and what I was going back to, and how I'd structured it, and how I built it, and I was just like it's successful, like it's making money finally after like a lot of struggle, to 5 years of struggle to get to this point, and a lot of different things that I tried, a lot of different ideas and business iterations that I played with. I finally had landed on something that was like, okay, yeah, cool. This is something that's making decent money. I'm able to pay myself effectively. Like, people are responding to, and yet I don't think I want to do it anymore. And if I was really honest, what I was doing was not the origin of the business. Like, it was not sharing my original reason for starting the business. And so I cleared my diary. Will it stick? For now, yes. I decided, right, I'm going to clear as much. In fact, I cleared the whole of January. I gave myself an extra month. I thought, okay, if I've taken 1 month, I'll give myself another month. How indulgent? Like, I'll definitely be feeling ripe and ready, and I've figured it all out by then. I'm still not feeling it. Not feeling like I was, like I had slowed down or switched off for the first time in a long time. And so I decided to mentally start an experiment. I called it a semi-sabbatical, a 13-week experiment. Now, when I say semi-sabbatical, people and AI think I decided not to work. The reason it's called a semi-sabbatical, and this was like for me personally, was like a permission slip to slow the fuck down, to work way less, and to stop the sales generation end of the business. So no new business development, like no reaching out to people on LinkedIn, no pressure on sales calls, none of that. I was like, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm actually giving myself a full permission slip to absolutely do nothing. Like, I could just sit here and read books all day, go to the gym or walk or whatever it looks like. And what ended up happening was a bit of a combo. So for me, semi-sabbatical ended up being probably like other people's normal operating system. Like, I just worked a way less and wasn't selling. This started, I'd been doing a lot of reflection, like a lot of reflection, like deep reflection, remembering back to why I started the business, what brought me alive. One of the exercises I love doing at the start of a new year is energy drainers, energy gainers, like literally looking back at the things that I'd done that past year, but a spectrum of what drained me to what was great, what did I absolutely love doing. And when I was doing that, I realized that a lot of the things that I was doing and how I had set the business up were actually draining me. And whilst I was good at those things, whilst they were revenue generating, they'd become kind of shoulds, things I should do. I think of shoulds like little piles of shit. Each should is a pile of shit. And we should on ourselves until basically we shit on ourselves. I mean, what was the last time you said, oh, I should do that? What's on your to-do list that you keep putting back? Oh, I really need to do that. I should do that. This is shoulding, right? I was shitting all over myself from a business perspective. And I was also working outrageously hard. Now, I know I told you I like to work, but the sustainability of how I was operating was, at some point, December was going to happen. Not only was that going to happen, I was so out of integrity with what I support my clients with, what I communicate and put out into the world. I cannot tell you how out of integrity I felt putting out into the world that, we need to spend more time on our well-being leadership. And yet, not living it, like really not embodying it to the level that I felt was in integrity. So that New Year's Eve was a line in the sand. It was a door to actually reconsider the life I was living, how I'd been operating, the operating system I'd been running from, and looking at, like, let's say you bucket your life into three. Let's say those three are simply work, relationships. It's actually really hard to write like this. And well-being. If I asked you right now to order these three, in terms of how much time, focus, prioritization you have been giving each of these three buckets in the last couple of months, what would you say was first? Like, what for you was first? Because for me, it was this, then like way down, it was relationships followed by my well-being. And when I say priority, I mean in terms of like actually my actions, how I was actually spending and investing my time. It was almost exclusively on there. But yet when I thought about what was actually a priority for me, and not to should, but what I wanted my life to be a priority in this stage, in this moment, it was like this. Relationships, I decided, would be my number one priority. If I was to write it down, like if I was to focus on what I wanted to be true, I'm trying to avoid the word saying the word should here, because it's not this was not a should. It was like, how do I want to be operating? What do I want to be my priority? Like, what is most important to me? And at this point in my life, relationships number one, as in my romantic relationships specifically, followed by my well-being. I mean, it's fairly obvious why my well-being had become such a priority, because I burnt out. But actually I didn't want it to go above. And then work got to be the thing, it got to continue to be a priority, but not top, not even second. It would then come next. And the semi-sabbatical, this wasn't going to be a commitment that I would make for the rest of the year even. I was like, this is an experiment. This is uncomfortable. I have never operated my life where I put relationships first. I've never operated where work wasn't. So I said, right, what if, Chloe, you run a little experiment. It's not scary, it's just an experiment. You're not committing to it for life. You put relationships first, your well-being second, and your work last. And you do this just for 13 weeks, just from the 19th of January to the middle of April. What if you do that? And if you were to do that, what changes would you make in your relationships and your well-being? I asked myself this at the beginning of January. What I decided by the 17th, or before the 17th of January, was to propose. I've been with my partner, frankly, unreal, amazing, for 8.5 years. And he is the most consistently best aspect of my life, and has been for like a good 3 years. I'm not saying he was good, wasn't good before, but for the last 3 years, we've like really focused on our relationship. I've changed, he's changed, we've grown, and I say that I hadn't put him first. That is true. But what is also true is that this used to probably come last. Pre 3 years ago, that would have been my last priority. I made a conscious decision, and we did some personal development work together 3 years ago that changed how I approached the relationship. And since doing that work, it has consistently been the best thing in my life. And the reason I can tell you that with full certainty is because I tracked it. Now, I'm not going to talk about We May Be much in this. The top line is I've been using a tracking tool for the last 8 years of my life that at least once a month, consistently, I would rate certain aspects of my life, give them a score out of 10, and actually see, okay, right, how am I feeling in this? And so I know and have 8 years worth of data that shows me, when I was looking at it in January, reflecting, that it's usually a 9 out of 10. And has pretty much been a 9 out of 10 for, well, at least last year. I feel so grateful to be able to say that. But I have been telling this guy, for whom I haven't been prioritizing above work, I've been saying, do not, under any circumstance, propose. Like, no, I don't need a distraction from work. We can't afford the type of wedding that I would want to have or would envisage. I'm not interested. Do not, under any circumstance, propose. Poor guy, right? But when I was reflecting over that New Year's period on what are my goals for the year? You know, if I only achieved 3 things, what would those 3 things be? My number one thing was I want to be married to this man. Like, I want to be his wife. Though I'm not interested in and never have been around the whole wedding thing, bridal thing, any of that, I want to be a team legally. I want to never be forced to testify against him. Like, that might sound bizarre, but I wanted to be a unit. So in a therapy session, I said, right, this is what I want. I now know what I want, but how the hell do I get him to understand? How do I unwind all of that I've been like, no, for such a long period of time? The only solution I had in that moment was that I had to propose. Like, we can't have a conversation about it, because if we have a conversation about it, then engage. So the shortest version of that is that I thought I had proposed. He doesn't. And that was a hilarious moment where I think, oh, we're engaged. And he's going, no, that's the pre-proposal conversation. So I'd actually like to propose. I'm like, fine, if that's what you want to do, I can wait. Which I did until this felt like ages. Like, in this meantime though, we found a ring, we've locked in a date, we've spoken with the Australian consulate, we've locked in a date December 2026. And no one knows, like, our families don't know, it's kind of just us. It's kind of actually very nice, but also frustrating, because I'm like, actually, it's not very much time for people to plan to fly out to Australia in December. Like, we need to get on telling people. Like, come on, where's the thing coming? And he's waiting for the ring to get made and all those sorts of things. And I'm like, da. I mean, it's not like I didn't wait 8.5 years out of choice. I joke. But at the same time, so the semi-sabbatical is going on. So I am in this kind of period of like not working as much as I was previously. And out of that, I'm doing a lot of creative rediscovery, self-rediscovery, a lot of deep work, a lot of belief work, a lot of reflection exercises, reconsidering my personal brand, how I want to show up in the world, the kind of business I want to be developing. But I was holding on to a lot of really seriously damaging beliefs that were keeping me stuck or stopping me from believing what was possible for me to create, for the business to be. I had to show up in the world, corporate, good girl image that I needed to be portraying in order to get the type of work that I thought that I wanted. Like, the level of rediscovery and reinvention and rethinking that was going on during this time was enormous. And in it, I realized and went back to, why did I start the business in the first place? Which was, We May Be a tool that had got me out of the dark place and kept me out. And I mentioned earlier, I'd been using and have been using for 8 years. I had started writing a book on that 5 years ago. Yet I couldn't work out how to commercialize it. And so subsequently had written 4 other books, other manuscripts that made more sense from a commercial perspective. And my business had then shaped around those books that I was writing. But the origin of Pop, the origin of why I left my dream corporate job in order to do this thing, was that tool. And that book, the original one which shared it, I had this like deep desire to go back to it and to, even though I couldn't see and couldn't work out exactly how I would make money from it, it felt like I was out of integrity by not sharing it with the world. It genuinely felt like I was totally living out of alignment because I was keeping it to myself. I was keeping it small, and I was like, this has so much potential to drive fundamental change for individuals, and I am keeping it small because I'm scared. All of that to say, I start writing it again. I have time, capacity, space to actually do it, and I decide, right, that is what I'm going to focus on. I've got an expanse of time. I'm gonna start getting it done, and I did. Within 2 weeks, I'd finished parts 1, 2, and I'd actually shared those parts. By the end of February, I invited 50 people to become pioneers, to use the book, to read the first couple of chapters, and actually start using the tool to track their own fulfillment, which by March I had 37 incredible humans doing a 9-week tracker challenge. I recorded in that month an audio version of the first 2 parts whilst I continued to write the remainder. For people like me who struggle maybe to find the time to read, I was like, I'll put it into a private podcast version that someone could listen to on the go. And I made a decision to publish in an alternative way, or like to self-publish, to not attempt to go with my dream publisher, which is Penguin, whom I still hope to be published by one day, but to do it myself and to launch a Kickstarter, which, if you're familiar with, it's an investment campaign to try and get other people to invest in the book so that I could make it into what it is. Which brings us to April, which is when Tom proposed, which was a lovely weekend. I won't go into those details, but still, like all of this time, I'm writing the book, I'm prepping for the launch of the Kickstarter, which I had planned to go out on the 28th of April, managed to get it out on the 22nd of April, and was like, yep, amazing, I'm sharing this thing with the world. I'm inviting them in to become an early reader, to invest in this thing that I have been dreaming of putting out into the world for like 5 years and just haven't got off my arse to do. I would be kinder to myself than that. I'd been too scared, genuinely too scared to put out there, because what if it failed? What if I failed to make the impact with it that I know that it was capable of doing? Like, what if I am not good enough at promoting this thing, this tool that I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind? And by this point in time, I can see for myself the impact that it's having on the 37 pioneers who were actually tracking, like the impact on their well-being, their fulfillment, their career, their relationships. Everything was going up. Their scores were going up through this simple, like 2-minute a week habit. I just was like, you're not going to be good enough, Chloe. You're not ready to share this with the world. And so you must keep it quiet until you are ready, until you are good enough to do the tool justice, the idea that had come through. Until you are ready and capable, you are going to keep it to you, because you don't want to let people down from doing a bad job of it and it flopping. Like, it deserves to be super successful, not for me, but for the impact that that tool will have on other people's lives. I was like, Chloe, you you have to do this really well because it's so important, because of the lives that it can change. Like, and you're not ready. You're not good enough to do that thing justice, so you wait. You do other things. Semi-sabbatical, with all that belief work that I was doing, enabled me to lean into the discomfort of the probable rubbish that I was spouting myself about my capability, and to take the pressure off that narrative that I was creating around if I did not do this book launch well or this tool launch well. It's hard to explain like the depth and the self-discovery and the pain and the like stuff I've had to navigate in order to actually get to the point where I was gonna put it out there, that I was gonna invite other people to read it, that I was gonna test whether it even worked. My hypothesis would be true, that it would help other people, not just myself. So the fact that I managed to get that waitlist out on the 22nd was a miracle. An hour later, I'm in the co-working space, having put it out there. I get a call from Tom with news that is just WTF. WTF. The long story short of it is the organisation he was working for was audited by the Home Office and told that their ability to hire international staff or people with visas was negated, and Tom was told he had 60 days to find someone else to sponsor him or leave the country. More than that, we're actually told that he doesn't even have 60 days anymore. He actually has 53 because he hadn't been told. So the clock is going down. And I won't go into the details of how realistic it was for him to get sponsored by someone else or make all this happen. I won't go into all of that. This is the same day. And I come home and we are like, right, okay, what do we do? Like, how do we solve for this? Right, well, we've just got engaged. We knew we wanted to get married anyway. We'll just fast track the wedding, right? Like, let's just bring this forward. And we spend the evening trying to work out options of doing that in the UK. Long story short, it's not possible. The solution we come up with is we will fly to Australia in a month's time and get married there. Meaning that if needed, I can sponsor him and he does not have to leave the UK. The next day, and I'm not going to go into details of this, but like I have the biggest personal, And what follows is probably the most stressful week of both of our lives, for sure. And the level of uncertainty, the level of stress, the level of frustration, sadness, anger, pain that happened, like really, really tough, really tough. I can't go into that in any more detail. I've already been probably more vulnerable and open than one would be comfortable with. But the long story short is I then, on top of this major decision to finally get this thing out into the world that I have been dreaming of doing for 5 years, setting the business up to pivot how it's positioning so it's full focus on We Me Be and set up around that, which will be rolling out and all of the unwinding that needed to happen around current business offerings, where I was,
the way I'd previously been visioning the things I was currently selling in, the programs I was previously running, like everything had ended up changing from this period of reinvention, period of recommitment to the thing that I started this business in this first place to share, which was We Me Be. And I'd finally got it out there, and now I have 4 weeks to plan an international wedding. So I'm recording this today, it's 15th of May. So as I said, this is happening very soon. And it's been really challenging, and I've asked myself over and over, should I continue on with the plans that I had? And the decision that I made yesterday was that the Kickstarter wouldn't happen. No longer would I run that investment campaign in order to deliver the book and put that book out and the tool out to the world. Like, I wouldn't wait for that, I would just do it. What aided that decision was I'd been running up for a big masterclass, and on the 11th before the 12th, when my masterclass was happening, my computer died, like all my tech broke. And at 4 p.m. the day before, I have 2 decisions. One, I can solve this problem, find a solution, try and do it like on my iPad, or run the session and continue on and plow on and force and make it happen. I'm prepped and I'm ready to go. I will find a way to deliver this. And I'm going to have to work through the night to be able to do that, and there'll be a load of more stress, or I can cancel it and say to everyone who had registered, who were excited for it, that's not happening. Like, I'll find another way to deliver that to you. And chose to do that, which I think past me wouldn't have done. 2025, Chloe would have forced herself to just like push through. There have been so many learnings from this experience. I am so clear on my why. I'm so clear that these are my priorities, relationships. I'm so excited for the wedding. I'm so excited to be married to Tom. Relationships, that is my number 1 priority, followed by my well-being, followed by work. Am I truly living these priorities right now? Yes? No. Was this happening during the semi-sabbatical? Absolutely. Did it kind of shift and work went back up, well-being went back down? Yes, it has. I need to recalibrate. But I guess the real realization throughout all of this time period is I was never inauthentic by championing well-being, by championing that work-life balance is frankly such a useless concept. Like, it doesn't work because it's way too simplistic. I can't wait to talk more about all of the good stuff that's come up, but even if I never use this to anything else but documenting it for myself, the past 6 months have been such a reactivation and a reconnection to myself, to what I want, but also to how much I'm able to hold, how important it is to recalibrate, how important it is to reassess where you're focusing and give yourself time, space to go back and think, right, how do I realign and create a life, a career that is truly fulfilling, and what's most important to me? Most important to me right now is my relationship with Tom, and I am more grounded than I have ever been in us as a team and the way that we've been able to support each other through what has been really challenging. I'm going to end it there. My call to action is, if you want to see more content that's like this from me, more behind the scenes, more vulnerable, more story-led, if that's valuable to you, leave a comment on this, or message me, because and perhaps this is something to remember for other content creators that you admire or you think are doing brave stuff, whose work has positively and does positively impact you, is like, I invite you to tell them because it can be a hugely lonely and isolating experience doing this sort of thing, putting yourself out there and not having any feedback or knowing if it's even like resonating. So if it is, please let me know. And if it's a nudge to go tell someone else who's inspired you or supported you, who you think, God, they wouldn't know, they were like, maybe just send them a message. Big love. Bye for now.